Yo! What's poppin'? This is Geebee.
This is Pastor.
And you are watching Ask the Pastor.
Get straight to it.
Alright. What's the question?
The question for today is, doesn't the Bible teach slavery?
Woo! Yeah. We've been getting a lot of comments on this one.
Yeah, I'm sorry we didn't reply for the past 3 comments. We know that you've commented 3 times. Okay. Alright.
It's a good question because it keeps so many people from understanding and believing in the Bible, because how could a loving God promote slavery? And they pull out these verses from the Bible that seem to promote slavery. Were you familiar with any of these verses?
I've heard, but I just cannot remember the verse names, but I've heard them.
You heard some people talk about it? Have you ever had somebody like say they had a problem with Christianity because of that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
I just did not know how to answer that, and I just looked at them, I'm like...
I know. I know what's going.
I love that. If only more of us did that instead of arguing or acting like we know what's up when we have no idea.
That's the Bible. We're earrings, so I'm sorry.
That's probably should be most of our responses when we don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Geebee. Wish I had an award to give you. Maybe some of you are like, I didn't even know these verses in the Bible.
We got you now.
We got you. The verses that is referenced a lot is in the beginning of the Bible, which is the first half of the Bible talks about the Israelites.
Right.
And how God calls them out as a people. They go into slavery themselves for 400 years in Egypt, and then God rescues them, and he gives them these laws. And I mean, it's just like pages and pages. It would take you several hours to read through these books of laws that he gives to his people to help guide them. And within those laws, there's some laws on how to handle slavery. And people look at these and they're like,
man, this loving God, it seems like he's endorsing slavery.
this is the first issue that comes up with the Bible and slavery. Number one, slavery looked very different at that time than our modern view of slavery. It wasn't based on a race. You weren't enslaving people because of their race. It wasn't you had complete control of someone and you were their master no matter what. Other countries were practicing that a little bit more, but actually if you look at the laws that was given to the Israelite people,
This is the crazy thing.
the laws actually say that if you are a slave, you can only be so by choice. You have to willingly enter into a slavery relationship. Why would you do that? Because it would be like someone who borrowed money from someone, couldn't pay it back, so they said they'd pay it back the next year, and they couldn't pay it back, and eventually said, the only way I can pay you back is if I work for you as a slave. So they would enter into a contract with someone as a slave to be able to work for them. And they were required by law to provide for their slave, to treat them well, and they were only allowed to keep them for 6 years. Then they were mandatory, had to be released. I mean, that's totally different than our idea of slavery. We can't put the two together.
Right.
But that's what it was. The other thing is, you were allowed to leave at any time. There's actually laws that say if someone runs away, it says,
I don't want to be your slave anymore.
you are not allowed to bring them back. They're actually allowed to go free wherever they want to go. That's very different, right? Voluntarily entering, voluntarily leaving, and a mandatory time limit.
So where was this law that was in Israelites?
It was for the Israelites, yes, which was very different than the countries around them, where it was not like that. So it's actually revolutionary at the time. You gotta think, we're looking through it the lens of 2000 AD. This is possibly 4,000 years ago, and we're trying to interpret this situation through our eyes. We have to understand it was different. It's not making slavery okay. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. But I'm trying to show you that there was a different thing happening than what we are thinking of when we hear the word slavery. These laws were given for the Israelites. So even if you look at these laws and you're like, they're still messed up, This isn't what God has commanded Christians as the church to follow. We look at the Old Testament, which is the beginning part of the Bible, and it's these group of laws given to the Israelites. There's both moral laws and civil laws. Moral laws is like the 10 Commandments that a lot of us are familiar with. Do not kill, do not steal. Those are the laws that are carried over to the church. We're still following the moral laws that God has given. But there's civil laws that say if you steal someone's goat, then you're allowed to go and take their goat. Or if someone accidentally kills you, you're allowed to seek justice.
Your family is because you're dead, okay?
So it's a separation, moral laws, civil laws. And these slavery issues deal with the reality of the world that the Israelites were living in. Those are civil laws. It doesn't apply still to today in that same way. I saw some of the comments people were referencing Leviticus and Deuteronomy and these books in the beginning of the Bible. Remember, a lot of the Bible is a narrative. It's telling stuff that happened. It's working within a culture. We take it the wrong way. We don't understand how to read these in the right context. So fast forward to the New Testament and you have the apostles bringing up the church, creating the church, and some people have a problem with this because they did not actively condemn slavery in the New Testament. It wasn't supported. Those verses from the Old Testament aren't carried on there at all. They're never even mentioned. Totally different scenario. Because you got to realize this is like 2,000 years later and the church is being started. You have to understand this culture too. It was in the Roman Empire where there's estimates of 90% of the people in the Roman Empire were slaves. Imagine that. That's a totally different culture and understanding. And people weren't enslaved for their race. They were enslaved because they were going to repay their debts. Maybe they were captured in wars. Maybe they wanted to go into slavery because it actually provided a better lifestyle for them.
Right.
When this was happening, you have to understand that's the context. And God came not to create some new political empire here when the church was being created. It was to reconnect people with God. Totally different mindset that was otherworldly of viewing people are made in the image of God. Galatians 3:28, there's neither Jew nor Greek, there's neither slave nor free, there's neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. Here's what they did emphasize in the New Testament, the New Church. They emphasized humility and servanthood. Talk about a flipping of culture.
Right.
Jesus was this huge teacher. He was a rabbi, and he went and he washed his followers' feet. Maybe you've heard of that story where he right the night before he died, he gets down on his knees and washes his followers' feet. Literally, you know what that would have been? That would have been the job of the lowest slave. And Jesus steps into that role and does that. So talk about servanthood and humility. That's what they did emphasize. They said, you know what? We're gonna flip things and stop thinking about them in the same way. I know there's so much more that could be said about this. Maybe you have more questions. Let's hear them. We can do more videos on this. We can address this further.
Right.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for checking us out.
Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the video.